Welcome, Geeksters. Today we're going to be making a French sandwich called a Croque Monsieur. Pardon my French, it's not great. I haven't used it since I was a child. And to start, we're going to make a bechamel sauce, which is just a basic white sauce. You're going to want about 3 tablespoons of butter. Once that's melted, then we will add flour and make a roux. You don't have to have a whisk for this step, but it makes life so much easier than trying to do this with a spoon or even a fork. Well, most of the time. So we'll let that melt down a bit. Now you just want to melt this. You don't want to let it get brown. That is not the goal here. Now once the butter is melted, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And we're going to reduce the heat and whisk this in until all of the flour is coated in butter. And that gives us the roux. Again, you don't want to cook it to the point it's brown. This is supposed to be a white sauce, not a brown sauce. Once the roux is all incorporated, the butter's all incorporated into the flour, I'm going to add about a half a cup of milk, half to 3/4 of a cup of milk. And I like to use a bit of heavy whipping cream. It just makes the bechamel a lot more rich. So you're going to put in about 1/4-ish to 1/3 of a cup. And we're going to whisk until all the lumps are gone and the flour butter roux is thoroughly incorporated into the milk. As you can see, the lumps are disappearing. Now we want to cook this until it starts to bubble a bit and thicken up. We don't want this to be runny for this particular recipe. I'm not using a specific recipe. You can find multiple ones online. Some are more complicated. This is actually a fairly simplified version, just because it's going to be a bit quicker and easier. Now you can see that the bechamel is starting to thicken up. If it gets too thick, you can add a little bit more milk or cream to thin it back out, but we do want it at a spreadable consistency. Add a little black pepper. Normally the French recipes call for nutmeg. I am not a fan of nutmeg, so I will not be adding that today. Now you see how this is thickening up. That's what we're looking for. And we're done with the bechamel. Alright, now we're going to assemble the sandwiches. It's a pretty straightforward grilled ham and cheese is the basic recipe. I am using a soft sourdough. You can see that it is soft, not particularly crusty. So we want to lay them out. Oops. And just a little bit of Dijon mustard on the insides. This is just to give it a little extra flavor. And while we're doing assembling the sandwiches, we're going to be melting some butter in a skillet to actually grill the sandwiches. Some people like to spread softened butter on the outside instead, but this is my preferred method. I prefer to melt the butter in the pan and make it that way. There's a lot less chance of sticking. Now, I actually got a French ham called Jambon de Paris, which is a boiled ham, as opposed to an American ham, which is smoked. I'm going to put down a couple of pieces of ham, like so. And since I have an odd number, I'll just go ahead and split these up and put some on each sandwich. Next, we're going to put the cheese on. You can use any kind of cheese you like. I am using the French cheese. Luckily, the guys at the deli knew what I was making, so they knew what thickness to slice my cheese at. And now we grill these in the skillet. Now, after the butter's melted, I'm going to put it on about a medium heat. Now, because the bread is not square, obviously things are hanging out, but that's all right. This is not a sandwich that you pick up and eat with your hands. This is definitely a fork and knife sandwich. Oh, we're going to cook these 3 to 5 minutes on either side until they're golden brown and crispy. You want to make sure you have used enough butter so that the sandwiches do not stick. Sticking is bad. You can see the cheese is starting to melt where it's hanging out over here. This step does not take long, so you want to keep an eye on it because they will go from brown to burned very quickly. That's what you're looking for. So it's not quite as done. So we'll make sure to leave it down this side for an extra minute or so. What you ideally want is for the entire bread to look like these spots. As you can see, this one is starting to toast, but not quite there. Probably should have left it on a little sooner, a little longer. Now we're going to move these over to a baking sheet. Be careful because the cheese should be melted and will tend to slide around on you. Now, we're going to take our bechamel, see how thick that is. I'm going to take that. Oop, there it goes, slidey bread. Get back on there. And you want to slather a pretty hefty amount of bechamel on top of the sandwich. Like so. We'll try to make sure all the top bread is covered. If it goes down the sides a little, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Because we're going to be putting this in under a broiler. Now we're going to grate some Parmesan on top. Like so. You can use little, you can use a lot. And it's totally up to you. If you need to follow the recipe exactly, do so. Add a little more pepper. And here again, this is to taste, however much you like. And a little salt. I'm using a flaked sea salt. You are welcome to use whatever kind of salt you prefer, or if you're on a lower sodium diet, although ham is going to add some sodium and so will the cheese, you can eliminate this step. That is totally up to you. All right, now we're going to slide this in the oven under the broiler. Let it do its thing for 5 to 10 minutes until it is bubbling and golden brown on top. All right, it's time to take these out of the oven and see how they look. Oops. Not as brown as I would have liked, but unfortunately my big oven, the broiler, does not work, so I'm having to use this toaster oven. But I think for our purposes, it'll be fine. All right, let's see how they look. And there we have one Croque Monsieur.